Okay, everyone, welcome to the Wireless Site Survey Build or Buy Kit webinar. If anybody can hear me, or if you can hear me, please just type in the message that you can hear me okay. All right, so I assume everyone can hear me. Yes? No? Okay, thank you. So during this webinar, if you have any questions, just type them in the chat window and we'll try to get them towards the end of the presentation, or if we have to, we'll follow up via email. The Twitter hashtag for this presentation or this webinar is hashtag HRAA webinar. And if you can tweet that out, we'll try to get to the questions or try to respond to any tweets that we see later on or after the presentation. Again, this is the Wireless Site Survey Kit webinar, Build or Buy. My name is Zaid Kaleem, and I'm with AccessAgility. We're a systems integrator out of the Washington, D.C. area. And my email address is on the slides, and also my Twitter handle is WLANbook. If you need to reach me either during the presentation or afterwards, feel free to email me or tweet at me, and I'll follow up afterwards. Joining me on this webinar is Mike Cirillo. He's the co-founder of HiveRadar, and his email and Twitter handle is on the slide also. The goal of this webinar is not to try to push you in one direction or another in terms of build or buy, but just to give some feedback on our experience building and using site survey kits for pre-deployment surveys, and to give you some information on what it cost us and the effort it took us to put them together, and then to give you some information on where you can buy a kit if you want to do that instead of building one. Before we get into the actual site survey kit cost and some of the designs that we've used in the past, I wanted to quickly go over what a AP on a stick setup is, or what that type of survey is. For those that are relatively new to Wi-Fi design or Wi-Fi surveying, an AP on a stick or a pre-deployment site survey kit is a setup where you have a AP connected to some type of mounting bracket that is on a pole, and that pole is typically movable so that you can walk around a facility and place that pole setup or that AP on a stick setup in different locations throughout the facility. And then an engineer or a technician using site survey software is measuring the signal from that AP, that test AP, and then using that information to plan out or to validate where the AP can be placed to provide proper coverage, proper capacity, some other metrics that you may want to collect about the environment. This setup was a very, very popular setup maybe 5–10 years ago. I think people tend to still use it. We definitely at AccessAgility still do this also. But our design for how the AP on a stick setup is used is slightly modified, and that's what we'll get into in the next few slides. So as mentioned before, we're a systems integrator, and we've been doing this for focused on wireless for about 10 years or 8 or 9 years. So we've been doing AP on a stick surveys. When we first started doing surveys, we had a real basic setup, which I call a cart-based setup. That setup involved using a off-the-shelf ADT utility cart. This is a plastic cart with 2 shelves, and we drilled a hole at the top on the top shelf, and then also added a flange on the bottom shelf to support the painter's pole, which was our pole for the AP mounting functionality. For the AP bracket, we took another metal flange and a construction plate and screwed those together in addition to the AP mounting plate. And this was our first design, or our first generation design. This is a very low cost design for us. We wanted something that was very low cost and very easy to build. We were relatively new to surveying, and this is something that we came up with based on our requirements. At that time, we were mainly doing surveys locally in our within 45 miles or 50 miles of our office, and this setup was pretty easy to take apart and transport in a car or truck, and served us pretty well. What we found out when we wanted to travel with this setup was that it was much more difficult to ship. It required us to come up with some way to pack this setup into a larger case and then get that shipped to the different sites that we wanted to get to, which made it very difficult for us to support surveys in different cities or different states that required us to travel via air. So what we ended up doing back in maybe 2009 or 10 was we would buy similar cart type setup at the local location and then build the kit there. And then if we had to, we would either just leave it at the customer site and give it to them, or we would throw it away when we left the site. The overall investment wasn't too high, and that was more practical for us than actually shipping the kit back and forth to the customer site. We used this kit for a pretty long time, and we had some success with it. But what we found was that we needed something that was a little bit more portable and transportable. So we started working on our second design for a kit. With feedback from our engineers, we came up with a design that met our requirements for travel, which was something that could be checked in as baggage. We wanted a single piece design. We didn't want to have a pole that was separate from the kit or a pole that we had to pack separately from the kit. So we wanted a single piece design that we could just ship if needed to, or carry on, not carry on, but check in as baggage. Again, we didn't want any carry-on parts, so the entire kit had to be part of our overall package that was either shipped or checked as baggage. We also wanted the total solution or kit to be all-weather and not damaged if left outside, either by the airline or by the receiving party that would receive our kits when we travel to different locations. Then we had some other minimum requirements. One was about 8 feet high for the pole, and then also we wanted something that we could mount different AP types on. And lastly, we want to be able to power our AP using PoE versus plugging it into the wall or some other options. Using information from the internet, we were inspired by many other designs out there. If you search for site survey rigs or site survey kits, you'll find many creative ways of mounting APs to a pole or an AP to a stick, and then having that stick mounted to different types of either furniture or baggage or carts. And using what we liked about the different types of setups that we found online, and through talking to people, we came up with what met our own requirements for our site survey kit. So our unique requirements, of course, mainly was focused around travel and portability. We knew we wanted to have a pole that was telescoping. We wanted something that we could add accessories to that were shipped around, and also something that was very rugged and strong, and that portability and that transportability is what was the focus of our requirements for our kit. So based on research, we used the Pelican K620 as the main base of our kit. And from there, we started coming up with ways to add on the other parts. So by starting out with this kit, we knew we could meet our baggage requirements based on the weight and based on the size of this Pelican case. We knew that it was rugged enough to withstand being shipped around tens of times and even hundreds of times, and then also that it would be something where an engineer could pull and carry around easily in and out of buildings and floor to floor if needed without any issues. The next challenge was to come up with a way to use this kit as a base for our pole. And the way we solved that issue was that we drilled a hole at the top of the case, and we created a PVC pipe-based sleeve or sleeve for the pole that we would use for this kit. And then we also came up with a way to cover that hole at the top so that when we weren't using or shipping this kit around, that hole was not available for things to get thrown in there or would cause any issues for us when we were shipping it around or checking in its baggage. The next challenge was to find a pole that would fit inside the case. This case is about, I think, 22 inches by maybe 24 inches. And the interior has room for, I think, a 22-inch long pole, either diagonally. It was a little bit longer, but just horizontally from top to bottom was about 22 inches. So the biggest challenge we had with this kit was to come up with a pole, a telescoping pole, or a multi-piece pole that would fit inside the case. After trying to source a pole that would fit inside the case, we really couldn't find something that met our requirements. We were thinking that we would go with the previous painter's pole setup, but what we found was that there was no way for us to find a painter's pole that was short enough when it was fully retracted to fit inside the case. And what we also found was that a painter's pole, after being shipped around a lot, tended to bend, or the telescoping features would tend to malfunction and just weren't very usable after a while. So our solution to this was to take a telescoping ladder, which we found was available in many places, including Amazon, and we cut the telescope ladder in half and then used the top rung. We didn't cut the top rung or remove the top rung, but we just cut it in half and used that for mounting the AP bracket to the top rung. This ladder here, I believe, was a 7.5 foot or an 8.5 foot telescoping ladder, and when this was cut in half and fully retracted, the total length was somewhere in the 21 or 22 inch range, which was exactly what we needed to fit inside our case. So once it was fully assembled, we had a single carry-on kit, which allowed us to extend or use the case as a base and extend the pole to about 8 feet high. And it was a very strong and very rugged pole that we could extend and retract, and it wouldn't really get damaged at all. The case itself had a lot of room for our accessories. I think the total weight with the pole and the battery and the case only was somewhere in the 40-pound range, leaving us about 10 pounds or so for accessories that we needed for the install, or the survey, like patch cables, distance meter, pins for the telescoping pole to keep that in place, and other minor items that our engineers like to carry around when they're doing surveys. The total cost for this kit was about $2,500, and this includes the labor, the accessories that we were using, and also the core case and pole setup. For those attending this webinar, we'll send out a full list of parts and pricing that we found online using Amazon for all the parts and accessories for this kit. But again, this is the total cost based on our estimate of labor that it took to build this case and pole setup, also the accessories and the material for the case and the pole setup. The cost for just the core site survey case and pole was much lower. So if you take out all of our accessories and the AP and all of the other items that you may not need, just the core Pelican case, the PVC piping, some of the basic L brackets needed to secure the piping to the case came out to about $363. So I think that's a very, very affordable price for any company or any individual or small shop that's doing site surveys that needs a portable site survey kit. And again, I've pasted the Excel spreadsheet part that shows the total pricing for this setup, and we'll send that out also after the webinar to all the attendees. The next part is a little bit more of a estimate type number. Our estimate of how much time it takes someone that is semi-handy or semi-good with tools is about 12 hours. And this includes the time to source all the material, to create the ladder by cutting create the pole by cutting the ladder in half, to prepare the sleeves needed for the case, and also to mount the AP to the AP mounting bracket to the pole setup, and then assemble all the items together, and then to create the foam locations for all the parts that will be stored in the case. We used an estimate of $80 per hour for a semi-handy person. Again, this number is just our estimate of what you would pay someone else to put this together. If you were doing this in-house, the number could be very, very different, and your total time after building the first one could be much lower, depending on how you streamline the assembly process for this kit. And the total labor cost, so now you're at about $363 plus $960, so somewhere in the $1,200, $1,300 range for the cost to put it together and for the material. The last part of our total cost for our kit were all the accessories, and again, this can vary for how you're set up, but this includes the AP and the mounting bracket, all the small items such as the patch cables, any measuring tape, any minor items that you may need for a site survey that we found useful. This also includes the battery cost. The battery that we used for our first generation and the second generation setup was a TeraWave battery or Sparkle battery, and I think those are somewhere in the $200 range. So even the accessory kit is weighed more towards the battery and AP cost, and the other minor items are much smaller costs for this setup. Some of the lessons that we learned with this kit was, one, that it was very, very rugged. Using anything Pelican-based tends to result in a very strong case that can be shipped around many times. We used this kit for a 50-plus site project that was, I think, about 8 million square feet, and I think we've used this case many, many more times since then. So I would estimate that we've shipped about 8 cases to 50-plus sites and surveyed about 10 million square feet with dozens of different engineers that are throwing this around in their trunk and shipping it or checking it in on different flights. So it's a very, very rugged case. We found that it was a very presentable, very professional looking case. When we arrived on site, our engineers would typically travel in a team of 2. One engineer would carry the case, and the other engineer would maybe have some other supplies that we needed for the surveys, and then have a meeting with the on-site contact. So when we arrived on site, we pretty much had everything we needed to do the survey when we arrived. We didn't have to ask for any type of mounting equipment or asked to plug into anything for power. But our engineers had everything they needed to do the survey with them. Another thing that we found useful for this case setup was that it was very easy to source parts for the units. We had situations where the clips for the Pelican case would either be damaged or not missing, and those are easy to replace. The foam, after maybe 10 or so sites, because engineers were unpacking and packing the different layers of foam in the Pelican case, we needed to maybe redo the different layers of packing foam. Those are easy to source online or through third parties. But overall, our entire kit was based on equipment or parts you could buy from a local hardware store, so it didn't really have any major issues sourcing parts to repair this kit. Some of the cons for our setup were mainly related to the do-it-yourself parts of this equipment. The Pelican case, while it was very rugged, was pretty heavy. The pole was a metal-based pole, very thick aluminum-based pole that, together with the battery and the case, was around 40 pounds. So we were pretty much approaching the limit for check-in baggage. And after adding all of our accessories, we were pretty much right at 50 pounds. So we were pretty much at the limit that we could be at for check-in baggage. The battery that we were using was a lead-acid battery. This is something that over time, they tend to not have a full power or full life for how you're using it. So we definitely have ideas on how to improve our battery options for any future kits. Third item, while the case was a single piece design that allowed us to carry everything and the accessories and the pole inside the case, it was too large to carry on. While this wasn't an issue for most of our requirements, we did get feedback from customers or situations with our engineers that if it was a carry-on type kit, it would be a much nicer when the engineers say only traveling for a one-day trip or a two-day trip, and they didn't want to have to check in the baggage. Our do-it-yourself pole, which was really a telescoping ladder that had locking positions in fixed heights, wasn't really usable for a infinitely adjustable pole. For our pole, we either had to use it at, say, about 3 feet, 5 feet, or 8 feet height, or we just had to, we really weren't able to use it at different heights depending on our requirements. I could see situations where if we had a telescoping ladder that went up to about 12 feet, and then having the flexibility to use that ladder at 12 or 8 or 7 foot would be nice. But the way this do-it-yourself pole was designed, you had to lock in the different sections using pins at the different heights or different section heights, and there really wasn't a way to be flexible with how high we could set up the AP. Some of the cons also is actually putting this kit together. We had technicians and engineers that are pretty handy. They actually took some pride in making this kit themselves and coming up with the design. So it was actually fun for them. But I can see situations where if you're in an environment or in an office where you don't have a place to cut and drill and saw, that putting this together may not be possible. Also, there may be often environments based on company policy where they may not want their employees to do this type of work, either because of liability issues or just they don't want their employees to sort of, or they don't have employees that are available to do this type of assembly work. Also, the pricing that I provided in the total pricing in the $2,600 and for just the case in the $363 range, that doesn't take into account tools required to build and repair this kit. To actually build it required some basic items, but those do cost money. And if you were to add those into the total cost, I think we would be at maybe a few $100s to maybe $500 additional just for the tools needed to make the kit. That's my part of my presentation for now. I'm going to hand it over to Mike, who's going to go over some of the experience that they had in building a similar kit also. Okay, Mike, I think I've sent it over to you.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. Zabe, I think I'm still seeing your screen here, though.
Okay, let me switch over.
Yeah.
All right. Sharing. Let's see here. Okay, I think I gave it to you now.
Yeah, perfect. There we go. So I'm hoping everybody can see me now. I'm just going to play this. Perfect. So again, thanks everyone for joining. And if you have any questions, again, as Zabe mentioned, that we'll be taking questions at the end of it and we can address them. But in the meantime, if you'd like to visit the website or get us on Twitter or email me with any questions afterwards for pricing or specific environments, you can just do that here. Here's my information. To give you some background information on myself, I worked for an IT company that did a lot of consultation for IT products, and among those were access points and Wi-Fi deployments. And although I never was an engineer, I never actually performed the surveys, I would go on site a lot. I did a lot of predictive planning, and I would go on site with them and witness a lot of some of the struggles that they'd have to go through, especially with equipment when performing some of these surveys. And from that, that's kind of how this all stemmed. I knew there had to be a better way to do it. And in my opinion, what it really comes down to in terms of the build or buy is your skill level, as Zabe mentioned, as well as your time and ultimately professionalism. So there are a lot of prefab options out there. I mean, even if you look at IKEA furniture to bicycles or even homes, most of these options are normally less expensive, but a professional build, more expensive than a professional build, but as you they require time and a certain level of skill, obviously. And as Zabe mentioned, that he demonstrated actually a great list of solutions for a DIY project. But there are many people out there who may not have the time or desire or not be handy enough to pull off a do-it-yourself build. Another interesting fact was while speaking with Zabe over the last few months, it's funny to see that a lot of us have similar issues and hurdles that we run into when we're on site, and I'll highlight some of those as we go through and talk about how we got to actually manufacturing kits. So I've been in a position where I both built and seen a lot of do-yourself kits, and some of them are more professional looking than others, but still a lot of options I would never personally bring on site myself. And remember, at the end of the day, your reputation, first impressions, and most importantly, the efficiency on site are all at stake. So if you're on site and you need to take a bunch of time to assemble your rig, remove it, or moving around the building, you're wasting valuable time that could be spent actually doing the work. When you have something that looks like it was built in your basement, your clients on site are thinking to themselves, why am I paying someone to do this when I could just be doing it myself? So if you're professional, you should really look like one when you're on site. And at least at that point, you're more likely to have reoccurring business and referrals. So a perfect example and kind of what sparked this whole, for us manufacturing kits, was the day we decided to convince our company that it was time to purchase a kit. And we were on site at a school, and the engineer I was with, that I was assisting, had extension cords running through the hallways. And he even went as far as to ask to borrow a student's chair, this one that you see on the left there with the tennis balls around the legs, so that he could place a tripod on it and roll it around classroom to classroom. So because of all these inefficiencies, we ended up staying there well beyond school hours. We had teachers complaining about us being in the way, and students tripping over stuff. Needless to say, we did not win their business, and after that, I can imagine how amateur we actually did look. Now, not all pre-built kits are going to be perfect, and they may not even hit some key features that you may require. So, for example, the kit that we did end up purchasing, we purchased the lead-acid PoE battery with it. This kit in particular had a rolling base that was stowed inside a Pelican case. So that's two separate pieces. It was a 6-foot extendable painter's pole, so it was aluminum. It was also heavy. Although the price was fairly reasonable, it took more time and effort to build one that looked more professional. And at this point, it was definitely more professional looking than the student chair. But after more and more use, we realized that it was great that we finally had something that looked a bit better, but the main issue was lugging all the pieces around. So when you're going on site and you're completing multiple floor surveys, you're talking about carrying around, a battery that weighs 10 pounds on its own, the case with a rolling base, another 15 to 20 pounds, and the pole has its own carry case. Then on top of that, you're carrying a laptop bag as well as perhaps a duffel bag with your AP. So, all in all, you're lugging around about 5 pieces of equipment on the site. And we started running into issues where we would have equipment go missing. So while we're actually performing the survey, because you have to leave a lot of these cases and equipment behind, janitors would walk by, or you'd have people who would, put it away for you, and you wouldn't know, so you think it goes missing, or things would actually get stolen. And a larger issue arose when we had to actually take this on a plane for out-of-province surveys. Yes, I'm Canadian, but we had to end up checking the kit in, which you can imagine left damages to the case. Items would go missing, or they would break. And in a lot of cases, it's expensive to ship all those separate pieces. So we made some modifications to that first kit that we purchased. It was kind of redundant to have a rolling wheelbase inside of a Pelican case. So we scrapped that and just used the Pelican case. That way you're able to roll this around room to room. It helped us keep a lot of our equipment together. But we were still running into issues where there was still a lot of equipment to bring on site. And ultimately, we wanted to be able for this to be as portable as possible. Something that was quick, easy, and all in one. So as we spoke to more and more engineers, mostly from Aerohive at that time because we were a partner of theirs, but as well as Meraki, a lot of their engineers stressed the same concerns that we were having. So they were replacing batteries constantly because the lead acid batteries would normally only provide about 4 hours of runtime. And not to mention they had a short shelf life, but traveling itself was near impossible. So mind you, they were traveling a lot more than us, but either way, they stressed that something small, lightweight, and portable was desperately needed. And that's what sparked this design. So this is the current design of our wireless site survey kit. And for the past 2 years, we've been doing a lot of research and development behind it. And we feel it's a great all-in-one kit for any site survey engineer. And it's something that's powerful enough to be used by professionals. It looks professional. But it was also something that we strive for was to make it as portable as possible. And we achieved that by actually making it airline carry-on friendly. So as you can see here, it goes down to about 22 inches and can extend to about 9 feet. And as I mentioned again, this is airline carry-on friendly. So all the pieces that are included are TSA friendly. It meets all weight and height restrictions to be carried on the plane with you. And this is really going to save from the longevity of your equipment. And also travel times and losing things. When you're going on site, you're often paying for hotels and all that kind of stuff too. So any delay that you have can cost you money. So by having this with you at all times, it's a huge benefit. One of the most important and hardest things for us to do was figure out a battery and a pole that could fit in the kit. And I'll start with the battery because the battery is something very special. We actually worked with a company that was developing batteries for small planes and pilots, so they could develop their navigation systems and stuff like that. So we worked closely with that team and actually built a custom battery that again is TSA approved. It's airline carry-on friendly. It's lithium ion, so that way you're getting a lot more charge cycles and shelf life from this. And the biggest and coolest thing is that we've custom rigged it so that you can run IPs through DC power, PoE, and PoE plus. And we've tested run times of anywhere between 7 to 9 respective for PoE and PoE plus, and up to 21 hours depending on the power draw. The integrated PoE injector that we have with the kit is rated for up to 35 watts. So it's we normally don't advise. I know some of the Cisco APs require higher power draw as well as outdoor APs. So that's something we also don't really recommend to because of the lightweight and small size of the case. It would be more prone to tipping with some of those larger access points. So I mean, for that reason, we also didn't develop a tethering system. Essentially, it's a collar that goes around the pole, and there's 4 straps that come off of it to help with the stability. But at any rate, we do recommend mostly for indoor surveys. So the next hurdle, as I mentioned beforehand, and I know Zabe also mentioned this too, was trying to find a pole that you could collapse down small enough to fit inside a case, but high enough to perform most surveys. And when speaking with the engineers, we found that 9 feet generally was a good height for most indoor surveys. Now, that's not to say people aren't using our kit for outdoor or even warehouse deployments. Even though it is limited to 9 feet, a lot of them are using stuff like lifts or other stuff to reach that height. But for us, it was very important to get something to at least 9 feet. Another thing too is because of the locking mechanism that's throughout it, you can adjust to any size that you need. So I mean, if you have obscure ceiling heights, you don't have to be limited to a 3, 6, or whatever height. You can adjust that as you go. The other thing was talking to manufacturers. We actually reached out worldwide. We got lots of samples from different manufacturers. We worked closely with them, and we just found that the one that we found in the U.S. was the best. These poles are rigid, they're strong, they're not going to topple, they're not going to sway when you have APs on them. We really did not want to cheap out on quality. Everything that's picked out for this and built and manufactured for this case is really so that there's a level of quality that's throughout this which is adding to the professional aspect. Other key features that really help this kit make what it is some of the waterproof connectors. So all the cables are custom made and sleeved. They all have waterproof custom connections on the outside. Not only is that to protect from elements, but on top of that, it's to give you a secure connection when you're on site. Cables get pulled and stuff like that, so these are actually locked in once they're in, and that way, cables aren't getting pulled when you're on site. Another thing is we have a few mounting options. One is an articulating arm. That's that green plexiglass piece you see there. That actually allows you to attach your AP manufacturer's wall mount bracket to that kit, and you can go from a wall deployment or even ceiling mount deployment. And more recently, we've started including a universal T-bar mount, and that's for any of your T-bar rails that you'll be able to include. It just clips on. And we found that there were some more necessary tools, things like an LED flashlight that you see in the top right there. This has a few different modes. It's long-lasting, and it also even provides the capability to charge some of your devices. So there's a USB cable that we also include with it. If you're on site and your phone's dying, you can connect to there and get a bit more juice. We include a TSA-friendly multi-tool. Again, it was very important to make sure that everything was able to be brought on the plane with you. So for that reason, there's no knives or anything attached to this one. It's just, and all the tools that you would need to basically disassemble our kit in case anything ever happened is included with that tool. And finally, I know when we were looking at other kits that were pre-bought, a lot of them were including things like meter wheels and stuff like that, which is a lot of data technology. We figured we would introduce a 60-meter laser distance measure to help you with your on-site measurements. So once again, everything was really carefully selected to be top of the line and provide engineers with something that looked professional, was portable, and ultimately something that's going to last you, something they don't have to replace all the time. In addition, some other things we wanted to do is we wanted to give back to the community. And one thing that we developed, because at HiveRadar, we don't actually do any site surveys, just to make that clear. We only manufacture the kits. So we actually were getting a lot of people contacting us regarding site surveys, and instead of throwing those leads away, we've decided to build something called a locator tool. So we actually have over 40 engineers worldwide, and they get plotted on our interactive map. So that way, if a company or somebody's looking to get a site survey done and they're in your area, the lead will go directly to you. So if you are an engineer, especially if you have your own company, we urge you to go ahead, sign up. The link's at the bottom there. It's HiveRadar.com/locator, and we'll verify to make sure that your certifications and all that kind of stuff are valid, and then we'll get you on the map. And I can promise you that we don't spam you or anything like that. The only time you'll ever see an email from us, unless you've signed up for our newsletter, at least from this aspect, you only see an email from us if there's a lead. The other thing that we're currently working on, I guess I didn't add the slide, was actually a project planner. And this is to kind of stop the, from you having written notes as well as pictures on your phone. We're going to make it so that you can upload floor plans and mark notes while you're on site. You can do photo, video, as well as written notes, and they'll get plotted on the map so that you can be reminded of what happened on site. Another thing we're very interested in is we're getting ready to do some more feature enhancements. We already have an integrated 3G, 4G router. And what that helps you do is we're actually having a lot of marketing companies using this, where they can use a 3G, 4G backhaul from a provider. Here we have like Rogers and Bell, for example. You would get one of their modem sticks and get an LTE plan, and you'd be able to provide internet access to the kit. And that's more for remote areas, stuff like outdoor, maybe trade shows and stuff like that. So, but what we really want to know in order for the future is, for example, is the 3G, 4G router really necessary? Would people be more interested in maybe a pole extension that would go to 13 feet? The only issue with that is we'd have to compromise all the pieces being in the kit. So these are sort of things that we want to know. Would a larger case be of interest, something that wasn't maybe carry-on friendly, but something that could fit more equipment, have a longer runtime, a higher pole height, more stability, be available for outdoor warehouse to use. So we're really looking for more feedback in terms of feature sets. So if anybody has some ideas, you can reach us on Twitter at HiveRadar, or my information again will be brought up again here. And for anybody wondering right now what the cost of the kit is, the list price is $4,995. And if you reference the webinar today, we're offering 20% off, so that'll bring the cost down to about $3,995 plus shipping costs, which are on average about $200 for most places in the US. So I think at this time, I'll hand it back over to Zaid, and I think we'll take question and answer if any have come up.
Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, go ahead and put them into the chat window, the question window, and we'll repeat those questions back to the audience and then try to answer those questions in the webinar.
Did we receive any questions, or?
Not since the beginning of the webinar. We've got some questions about just not being able to hear, but I think we've resolved that issue when we started. So, okay. See what we get. Any questions, anyone? Okay, so it looks like there are no audience questions. So one thing that we found from our survey kits was so you said that the battery you have is a special battery compared to the standard TerraWave design or the Pelco. I can't remember the Sparco design. So like, what are some of the unique features that allows you to take that onto a plane versus a lead acid battery?
Well, I mean, the biggest one is obviously that it's lithium ion,
Okay.
and it's and that's generally, I mean, you'll see those with your phones and all that kind of stuff too, right? So that's obviously a big thing, and also the weight. The battery only weighs about 2 pounds. Another cool aspect of the battery too is the chassis that's holding it in is being held in by about 4 screws. So we tried to make the kit as multi-dimensional as possible as well. So you can actually take that battery out of the case and you can bring it with you as an extra power pack. Stuff like if you're going camping or for a day trip, because it only weighs 2 pounds, you can throw it in a knapsack. It also has some USB ports, so you'll be able to charge your devices and stuff like that as well. So, also on site, if you ever do have anything going over about 8 hours when you're on site, and you need to swap that battery, it can just be easily swapped by taking out those 4 screws.
Okay, yeah, so that's something that we're looking at to do with our kit setup, is to come up with a something that if we need to, we would be able to carry it on. So you also mentioned that the pole that you have, you could get that to something beyond the 8 foot height.
Yeah, we were interested
yours
to hear
is 9
from
foot already, but yeah.
Yeah, ours will extend to about 9 feet. And things that we've been speaking about internally was trying to get to a 13 to 15 foot height, at least with this case. And we were trying to just get some feedback from people to see, because obviously one of our biggest challenges was trying to get everything to fit inside the case so that there was only one thing you were bringing on site. So we're wondering if we were able to bring it to 13, 15 feet, would people be okay with needing to carry that piece separately? Is that a big need for a lot of people to go over 9 feet? So obviously any feedback is appreciated, and ultimately it's just going to help the engineers in the long run to see, try to cater to what they need, right?
Right. Okay. That's all the questions I had. So if no one has any questions, we're going to end the webinar. And feel free to send emails to me or Mike, or tweet to both of us, and we'll try to answer any questions. So at the end of the webinar, or maybe sometime tomorrow, I'll be sending out my slides to all the attendees, and also I'll send out the Excel spreadsheet that includes all the bill of material items that we put together for the kit. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out after you receive that email, and we'll try to answer your questions.
Sure. Maybe Zabe, what I can do is I can send you a data sheet. That way it'll have kind of reiterate the information I went over in my slides, and it'll have the information if anybody's interested in pricing or has any questions. Again, you can always reach out to me.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, everyone, thank you for attending the webinar, and watch out for our emails regarding some of the content from this webinar and also the spreadsheet. Thank you. Bye, everyone.